So let's create those entities. I'll create a model package here and then have two classes for this application. It's going to be an online trading application or something resembling that. And for this, I want an account class that'll keep track of user information and the balance they have available within this trading application. So let me fill out some fields here for this class. So here we go. This is a very simple Java class. We have an account class with an account ID, a username, and a balance, and two constructors, a no-arg constructor and one that takes in everything as an argument. So that does it for the account. I'll create a trade class as well with some information here. And then finally, we have a trade object. So let's see here. This one has a trade ID, an open time, and open price. So the price at which I bought this underlying instrument. A Boolean, this is just a convenience field here to tell me whether this is open or not. And then some information about when it was closed and at which price. And then finally, this one is pretty important, is the owning account. So an account can have multiple trades, 0 or more trades belonging to it, but a single trade can only belong to one account. So that implies some sort of relationship here. Now, as it currently stands, these two classes are not yet this special entity type that we need for JPA. So let's focus on the account class. This one is pretty simple. So we're going to use a couple of annotations to mark this as an entity and to set up these columns, the SQL table columns. And the first annotation we have is going to be this entity annotation, and we can give it an optional name. So in this case, I'm going to call it account_ent. And I just want to demonstrate that we have a difference between the table, the SQL table, and then the entity. By default, it will just take the class name. But let's see here if I use this account ENT. The next annotation we have that's pretty useful is a table annotation. And with this one, we can give the SQL table a special name. So let's say you wanted some custom name, account V1 or whatever, then you can use this annotation for that. Up next is a primary key. So every table that we create needs some sort of primary key or the identification column. And with JPA, that's pretty easy. We just annotate it with this ID annotation. Then we have this column annotation, and this lets us specify a name for this SQL column. So let's see here, I'll have account_ID. And this depends on your naming conventions that you have for your SQL database. So I'll just go ahead and fill out the rest of these things. So here we go, all of my columns are filled out. Let's take a quick look at this though. The account ID, that's our primary key, so that will be indexed and also have a unique constraint. But let's say we want to add an index to this column here, because searching on a username that'll be pretty useful. To add indices to our table, we make use of this table annotation here. So in this case, I'll have indexes. There's this indexes array, and we can start out with the array syntax here, and then add an index annotation. This needs a name, so we can call it IDX account and then username. And the column list is going to be a string value containing the columns that we want to add to this index. So in this case, we have this index account username. This is just some convention I follow. So the table name and then the column name. And then here we give it the columns that it should use in this index. So now that'll create an index for this column here. The next thing we might want to do is specify some default values. So in this case, for the balance, when a new account is created, we might want to default the value to 0. And in that case, we can simply make use of this annotation, column default. And this just takes in a string value for the default value. This will be converted to the appropriate data type inside of this table. The next thing we can do with this username, for instance, if we want this to be unique, then there's a simple value here in our column definition. We add this unique equals true, and that will enforce a unique constraint on this column. So that does it for our account entity. This thing should now be ready to go. So let's go take care of the trade one, and I'll simply add in those annotations as it's necessary, and then focus on this owning account. Okay, so here we go. The trade is now set up with these basic things that we covered for the previous class. So now let's focus on this account field here. This is going to be the owning account of this trade. And this will be useful when we want to select all the trades for a specific username. Now, in that case, we don't have a username defined here. We only have that defined in our account class here. So that means that this field here will be a joining field or a joining column. Now, the annotations involved here is going to be the relationship that we have set up, and we read this with the current class that we're working in. So the trade class, we say that there's many trades to one account. That's how we read it. And then finally, to specify some column name on this field, we make use of this join column annotation. We can have a name in here. I'll call this my account ID. And we can take a look at what happens in our database when we create these trades with a specific account. It's going to take the primary key of this entity and then use that as the value for this column in our database, even though in our entity itself, this is an entire object. So that's the only thing that's extra from the other classes, this many to one and join column. Okay, so that does it for our entities. In the next video, we're going to take a look at how to set all this up and tell this JPA how to communicate with our database, where it is and then what credentials to use, as well as which classes it needs to manage as entities.